The old Hartwell house on Magnolia Ridge had a way of speaking to anyone patient enough to listen. Not through whispers or creaks or ghostly moans, nothing so dramatic. Its language was subtler, a slow settling of beams when the humid Alabama air thickened, a faint sigh of window glass cooling at dusk, the soft hush of ivy brushing against wooden siding on breezy nights. If this story touched your heart, friends, please like the video, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe for more touching stories. Thank you for being here. For 43 years, I learned that language the way you learn a spouse's quirks, quietly and without expecting applause. This home carried the imprint of my entire adulthood. And somewhere along the way, I stopped knowing where its story ended and mine began. That morning started like any other. I stood at the kitchen counter, preparing sweet potato biscuits, the way my own mother used to make before dawn. The sunlight spilled through the latticed windows, catching dust specks mid-air, making them look like dance partners twirling in slow motion. It was peaceful, too peaceful in hindsight. Elias, my husband, sat in the adjacent den, wrapped in a knitted blanket I'd made years ago, one of the few things his memory still recognized. The doctor said his episodes were growing more frequent, but I clung to the small, lucid moments he gifted me, like the way he still smiled every time he tasted honey butter, or how he always hummed the same tune when he drifted off to sleep. Midway through slicing dough, I heard footsteps upstairs, heavy, impatient footsteps that belonged not to us, but to the couple who'd moved in 3 years earlier. My daughter, Noelle, had begged us to let her live with us until she and her husband were on their feet. At the time, it sounded reasonable, a temporary arrangement between family members, I thought. Temporary turned into permanent. Permanence turned into something else entirely. Lydia. Noelle's voice cut through the house like a blade. I stiffened. She never called me Mom anymore. My name came out clipped, as if she were addressing a coworker who inconvenienced her. I didn't answer, not immediately. If I hesitated long enough, maybe she'd go away. But she appeared anyway, standing in the doorway in a satin robe the color of champagne, arms folded, lips pursed. "That same old recipe again," she said, wrinkling her nose. "You know Jamie doesn't eat carbs before noon." I kept kneading dough. "Your father likes these biscuits." A soft scoff left her lips. "Dad doesn't know what day it is half the time." The words stung, not because they were wholly untrue, but because they were delivered with such cold thoughtlessness. Noelle once adored her father. Now she spoke as if he were a piece of furniture she wished she could replace. Before I could respond, Jamie stormed in behind her, wearing joggers and a smug expression. He barely glanced my way. "We need to talk," he announced, as though I were an employee summoned for a performance review. I wiped flour from my hands. "About what?" Jamie produced a folded stack of papers from his pocket. "About the house. It's time to put it in Noelle's name legally, efficiently, before things get complicated." My stomach tightened. Complicated? He shrugged, the picture of casual entitlement. "Look, you and Elias shouldn't have to worry about property matters at your age. We'll take care of things." Take care of things? A pretty phrase for taking what wasn't theirs. "No." I said it without raising my voice, without shaking. Jamie's jaw twitched. "You're being unreasonable." Noelle stepped forward, eyes blazing with irritation I didn't recognize. Why make this harder? Why cling to something you'll have no use for eventually? I looked at her, really looked at her. My daughter, my blood. Yet I barely recognized the woman standing before me. And that was the moment I understood something essential. I wasn't losing my house. I had already lost my daughter. But what none of us realized, not yet, was that this home held a secret even I didn't know existed. A secret that would reshape everything. Because just hours after they confronted me, I would find myself locked in the cellar, or so they believed, and the house would finally reveal what it had been hiding for decades. The confrontation that morning lingered in the air like a storm no one could see, but everyone could smell. Even Elias sensed something was wrong. He kept glancing toward the staircase, his brow furrowed in a way that meant his mind, fogged as it sometimes was, had caught a shift in the wind. "You all right, sweetheart?" he murmured when I brought him his tea. "I'm fine," I lied. "Just tired." He reached for my hand. His touch was warm despite the season, the way it always had been. "They're planning something," he whispered, voice gravelly. "I hear them at night. They think I don't understand, but I do." Before I could ask what he meant, hurried footsteps approached. Noelle's. "There you are," she said too brightly, a smile stretched thin over irritation. "Jamie needs you downstairs. Something about a leak in the cellar." Her tone set off every alarm bell inside me. "There was no leak," I said. Her smile vanished. "Just go check." I hesitated only a moment before heading toward the basement door. If I refused, I knew the situation would escalate. Better to keep the peace, I thought. But when I stepped inside the narrow stairwell, Jamie appeared behind me, his presence massive, blocking out the light. "What are you—" I began. He didn't answer. He shoved. Not hard enough to send me tumbling, but forcibly enough to send me stumbling down the first few steps. I gasped, catching myself against the wall. Before I could turn, the door slammed. A bolt clicked. Locked. "Noelle! Jamie, open this door right now!" Their footsteps retreated. My own home swallowed their absence like a wound closing shut. For a moment I stood there in the dim glow of the single bulb overhead, stunned more than afraid. My daughter, my flesh, she had locked me away like a burden she finally found the courage to set aside. The air grew cooler as I descended the remaining steps. The cellar hadn't been used for storage in years, just a few crates of forgotten tools and boxes of Christmas decorations. Dust coated everything in a thin gray film. I tried my cell phone. No service, not unusual for this level of the house, but still frustrating. I paced the room, fury slowly overtaking fear. When my hands brushed against the far wall, rough stone nearly cold to the touch, something unexpected happened. One of the foundation stones shifted beneath my fingers. Not much, just enough to make me freeze. I pressed again. This time, the stone depressed inward with a soft grinding sound, revealing a pocket of darkness behind it. A hidden space, a hollow no one had told me about. Curiosity overcame caution. I reached into the cavity and felt the edge of something smooth, a metal box no larger than a lunch tin. I pulled it out, brushed away decades of dust, and sat on a wooden crate beneath the dim light. The latch resisted at first, stiff with age, but eventually popped open. Inside lay a bundle of papers wrapped in oilcloth, neatly folded, preserved with the care of someone who knew they were hiding something worth guarding. My heartbeat quickened as I peeled the cloth aside. The first item was a faded certificate, birth-related but not belonging to anyone I recognized. The name wasn't Hartwell or even remotely close to. The second was a letter written in a hand I'd never seen, yet somehow felt familiar in ways I couldn't explain. Steady, intentional, deliberate. As I read the first few lines, my breath caught. It was addressed to Elias. But not to Elias Hartwell, to Elias Rowan, a name I'd never heard in my life. And the letter began with the ominous line, "If you're reading this, son, it means the past has finally caught up." A chill ran up my spine. What past? What truth hid in the shadows while I baked biscuits and tended gardens above? And why had Elias never spoken of this? Before I could read more, I heard something upstairs. Soft, slow, footsteps. But it wasn't Noelle or Jamie coming back. It was someone else. And what they said through that locked door changed everything I thought I knew about my husband. The footsteps above were too light to belong to Jamie, too hesitant to be Noelle's. They creaked across the floorboards as though the person walking feared the house might betray their presence. My body went still, breath caught halfway in my throat. Then a voice came through the basement door, soft, strained, but unmistakably familiar. "Lydia?" "Elias." Relief washed through me so quickly my knees gave out. "Elias, honey, are you all right?" He tried the doorknob. It rattled uselessly. "They locked it," he whispered, as though the walls themselves were listening. "I knew they would. I told you. Didn't I tell you they were planning something?" His voice carried an eerie clarity, more lucidity than he'd had in weeks. I stepped closer to the stairs. "Elias, what's going on? Why would they—" But he interrupted me, his tone shifting to something I hadn't heard in years. Not the gentle, faltering cadence of a man slipping into confusion. No, something harder, more controlled. "Lydia, listen carefully," he said, lowering his voice until I had to lean forward to catch every word. "This house, this family, it's not what you think. I should have told you a long time ago. I thought burying it would keep you safe, keep Noelle safe. But now," he exhaled shakily, "now they've dug up what I hoped would stay hidden forever." My heartbeat thundered. I looked at the documents in my hands, the strange birth certificate, the oil-stained letter addressed to Elias Rowan, a man I had never met, despite living beside him for over 40 decades. Who is Rowan? What aren't you telling me? Silence. Then finally, "It was my main before Hartwell, before your father took me in." I blinked. My father? The revelation knocked the wind from my lungs. My father, the stern, dignified man who built this house, had never mentioned adopting a child, never hinted that Elias had arrived under anything but ordinary circumstances. Elias continued, voice trembling. "Your father, Judge William Hartwell, hid me under his name to protect me. I was 16 when he found me, a runaway, a target." A target? For what? But before he answered, something rustled behind me in the cellar. The tiny sound of paper brushing wood. My heart leapt, and I spun around, clutching the metal box instinctively against my chest. The cellar was dim, filled only with muted shadows and the soft bulb overhead. Yet something about the darkness now felt alive, watching. "Lydia," Elias called, panic creeping into his voice. "I'm fine," I lied, still staring at the far corner as if expecting something to emerge. "Just startled." "You shouldn't be down there alone," he murmured. "Those documents, if they're the ones I think they are, then everything is worse than I feared." He paused. The floorboards above groaned as he shifted his weight. "There are people who would do anything, anything to keep the truth buried." My hand trembled around the letter. "Elias, what truth?" He exhaled slowly, defeated. "That I wasn't just adopted, Lydia. I was hidden, because the man who fathered me left behind something people were willing to kill to find." The words hung in the still air of the cellar like smoke. Kill? My mind raced. My husband, the gentleman who raised our daughter, who hummed lullabies at midnight, was telling me that his life had been built on a secret so dangerous it required a judge's protection, a secret he'd kept from me for more than 40 years? "Please," he said softly, almost pleading, "don't read anything else until I can explain it to you, face to face. Just stay where you are. I'll find a way to get you out." But before I could answer, the front door upstairs slammed open, the sound reverberating through the floors like a gunshot. Heavy footsteps, Jamie's footsteps, stormed inside. "Elias?" he barked. "We need to talk." Elias's voice vanished, swallowed by tense silence. My heart climbed into my throat, because Jamie wasn't alone, and the person with him knew exactly what those documents meant and why Elias had spent a lifetime hiding the truth. Jamie's voice thundered across the floorboards, each word striking with the weight of someone used to bulldozing their way through conversations and people. But it wasn't his voice alone. There was another, lower, older, the kind of voice that carried authority without raising its volume. "Where is she?" the stranger asked. My breath hitched. Elias didn't answer. I could imagine him, frail, confused, trying to calculate whether speaking would protect me or doom me. "Mr. Hartwell," the stranger continued, "we've been over this. We don't have time for games. The papers your wife found, they're not harmless family keepsakes. They're evidence, and I need them." Evidence? My fingers tightened around the metal box as though someone might snatch it from the shadows. I moved deeper into the cellar instinctively, toward the corner where my father once stored paint cans. The air felt heavier now, thick with the weight of secrets finally clawing their way out. I strained to listen. Jamie scoffed. "Look, Mr. Walsh." Walsh! The name hit me like a stone. Several years ago, Elias had panicked after receiving a letter addressed to that same last name. He claimed it was junk mail, insisted on burning it before I could read it. I'd brushed it off then. But now? "She's not down here," Jamie continued, irritation evident. "And even if she was, you're not going in our basement. I'm not getting involved in whatever mess they've dragged this into." Mess. So Jamie did know more than he pretended. My pulse quickened. "Your wife assured me the documents would be accessible. If she cannot retrieve them, he," a pause, "will." A sharp bang followed, not a gunshot, thank God, but the sound of something being shoved against a wall. I gripped the banister instinctively. The stranger's tone cooled to something dangerous. "Mr. Hartwell, I won't ask a third time. Where is your wife?" A long silence followed, and in it a memory fluttered back to me, one that suddenly felt like a puzzle piece falling into place. Years ago, I had found Elias sitting alone in his workshop, staring at an old newspaper article about a man arrested for whistleblowing on a clandestine research project. The article mentioned missing data, vanished prototypes, rumors of military involvement. Elias had quickly folded the paper when I walked in, muttering that it was just an old story. But the man in the article had a familiar jawline, familiar eyes. Now, standing in that cold cellar, I finally understood why. The stranger above wasn't just looking for misplaced heirlooms, he was looking for something my husband's father, whoever he truly was, had died protecting. A sudden thud jolted me back to the present. Elias must have resisted, and Jamie muttered something under his breath. "Enough," Walsh snapped. "If she's not up here, then she's in the cellar. Move." Panic surged. They were coming down. I scanned the basement desperately. There was no exit, no hiding place, only the cold stone walls and the metal box that now felt like a live grenade in my hands. I darted to the far corner, behind a stack of old trunks, pressing myself against the wall. Seconds later, the bolt scraped. The door creaked open. A rectangle of light slashed across the cellar floor. "Lydia?" Walsh echoed, calm and icy. Let's not make this unpleasant. You have something that belongs to my employers. Employers? Not family, not clients. Employers. Which meant he wasn't here on personal business. This was organized, intentional, a pursuit decades old. I held my breath, heart hammering. His footsteps descended slowly, deliberately, like a hunter giving prey a chance to reveal itself. I know about Rowan, about the project, about your husband's escape. You have no idea what you're holding. But I did know, at least enough to understand one thing. If Walsh found me, neither I nor Elias would walk out of this house alive. I clutched the letter tighter, swallowing my fear. Somewhere inside me, the quiet woman who baked biscuits and tended gardens snapped awake, replaced by something colder and sharper. If they wanted the truth buried, they'd have to fight me first. And just when I thought I was trapped, the house itself revealed a way out, one that my father had built for reasons I was about to uncover. Walsh descended each step with the patient confidence of a man who expected victory. Jamie followed behind him, breathing heavily, whether from fear or annoyance I couldn't tell. Light from the open door stretched across the cellar floor like a blade, inching closer to where I hid. My heart pounded so loudly I feared it would betray my location. "Search the left side," Walsh ordered quietly. "She's here." She wouldn't leave him. His accuracy chilled me. He understood more about me than I wanted to believe. My hands trembled as I pressed deeper behind the stacked trunks, fingertips brushing the cold wall. Cold, but not uniformly so. One section felt hollow, a subtle shift in texture almost imperceptible. My father's handiwork always carried a particular meticulousness, faultless symmetry, perfect measurements. But this? A faint seam in the stonework where no seam should be. A memory flickered. I was 12 years old, sitting on the back porch while my father repaired a wooden hinge. I asked him why he worked so carefully, why every corner had to be exact. He rested his hand on my shoulder and said, "A house should always protect its people, even when they don't know they need protecting." At the time, I thought he meant reinforced beams, fire safety, strong locks. But now, with Walsh creeping across the cellar like a wolf, I understood there were protections my father never spoke of. Slowly, silently, I pressed my palm against the cool seam. The stone gave way. Not much, only the width of my fingers, but enough to confirm what instinct had whispered. There was a hidden mechanism. I pushed harder. The stone shifted with a soft internal click. Then another. Suddenly, a segment of the wall loosened inward barely an inch, enough for me to wedge my fingers around its edge and tug. It swung in, revealing a narrow passage swallowed by darkness. My pulse thrummed in my ears. A hidden passageway. My father had built a hidden passageway. And Elias? Elias had known nothing of it. Or maybe he knew once and forgot. Or maybe he'd been too afraid to reveal it. Behind me, Walsh paused. The air shifted. His footsteps grew sharper. "She's here," he muttered. I slid into the passageway and pulled the stone door shut, just as Walsh's flashlight beam sliced across the trunks where I had stood moments before. I held my breath. His footsteps stopped right outside the wall. A long silence followed, punctured only by Jamie's nervous shifting. "She was here. She didn't climb the stairs. Yet she's not in view." He exhaled, irritated. "There's a hidden space in this room. This house is older than it looks." My heart hammered against my ribs so violently I feared it echoed. The wall shielding me was barely half a foot thick. I listened as he and Jamie tore through boxes, shoved furniture aside, inspected the floors. The flashlight being flickered across the crack along the stone door. I turned my face away, terrified the reflection of my eyes might give me away. Minutes passed like hours. Finally, Walsh let out a tight exhale. "We'll regroup. This house is full of tricks. She can't stay hidden forever." Their footsteps retreated. The cellar door slammed back. The bolt slid back into place. Silence. Utter, suffocating silence. I sagged against the narrow corridor wall, trembling. The passage smelled of earth and old timber, the floor uneven beneath my feet. With shaking hands, I pulled out the letter addressed to Elias Rowan. If my father had constructed this hidden passage, he must have known the danger Elias carried with him. He must have known the past would one day come knocking. Why hadn't he told me? Why leave me ignorant of something so important? Unless he assumed Elias would be the one to explain. My throat tightened. I raised the flashlight on my phone, illuminating the passage. It stretched far deeper than I expected. Narrow, steep, carved directly into the foundation. My father hadn't built a hiding spot. He'd built an escape route. Clutching the documents, I moved forward, deeper into the unknown, the walls closing in like clenched fists. What else had my father kept from me? And more importantly, what kind of man had Elias been before he became mine? Because at the end of that dark passage, I would find a room filled with answers and a truth that would shatter everything I believed about my husband. The passage sloped downward so steeply I had to brace one hand against the wall to keep from slipping. My phone's faint light flickered against the rough earthen tunnel, revealing roots clinging to the ceiling like skeletal fingers. Whoever dug this space, my father or someone before him, had done it with secrecy in mind. No nails, no beams, just carved soil and stone. After what felt like 15 minutes of careful descent, the passage widened. The air shifted from the cold sense of earth to something else. Old paper, leather, iron. A smell I knew well. A smell of archives. My breath hitched as the narrow tunnel opened into a small underground chamber. My father, the meticulous Judge Hartwell, had built an entire secret room beneath our home. But this room wasn't empty. A wooden desk stood in the center, covered in dust but perfectly preserved. An old lamp with a cracked glass shade sat atop it, beside a stack of folders tied with aging twine. 3 metal filing cabinets lined the back wall, their labels faded beyond recognition. Loose papers covered the floor like forgotten leaves. On the wall opposite the entrance hung a rusted map pinned in 5 places. Even through the dust, I recognized the territories. Sections of rural Alabama, government-owned land, restricted access. My pulse quickened. This wasn't a shelter. This was a research archive. I approached the desk, drawn to the topmost folder, as though it had been waiting for me. When I opened it, the first document made my blood run cold. Rowan Project, Preliminary Ethics Report. Lead contributor, Dr. Silas Rowan. Dr. Silas Rowan. Elias's father. My husband's forgotten name wasn't just a footnote in some lost birth record. It was tied to a classified project, one involving restricted land and government oversight. Hands trembling, I skimmed the next page. Prototype designed must be relocated. Unauthorized access suspected. Recommend relocation of subject and dependent. Subject. Dependent. My breath caught. They weren't protecting data, they were protecting a child. A deep ache spread through my chest as the truth formed. Elias must have been the dependent referenced, the child of a scientist whose research threatened someone powerful enough to cover it up. And my father, Judge Hartwell, had hidden him, shielded him, taken him in as his son-in-law before I ever knew the magnitude of his past. I reached for another folder. Inside were newspaper clippings, articles about fires in government labs, accidents during testing, unexplained disappearances. Almost all were labeled Rowan. One article stopped me cold. Brilliant researcher dies in warehouse explosion, family missing. The grainy photo showed a man with Elias's eyes. The date matched the year Elias would have been 16. I felt the room tilt. My husband, gentle, soft-spoken Elias, had lived through a tragedy he'd buried so deeply that even I never glimpsed its shadow. And my father helped bury it. Why hadn't they trusted me with the truth? Why let me spend decades in the dark? A rustle behind me snapped my focus. My heart lurched. But it wasn't Walsh. It was Elias. He stood at the threshold of the passage, breathless, leaning heavily against the wall. His eyes scanned the room, not with confusion, not with surprise, but recognition. "Lydia," he voice broke, "you weren't supposed to find this, not like this." I rushed to him, helping him into the room. "Elias, what is all this? Why didn't you tell me? Why hide something so important?" He lowered himself onto the chair by the desk. For a moment, he simply stared at his hands, wrinkled, trembling, burdened by years he hadn't spoken of. His face held a sadness older than our marriage, older than this house. Finally, he whispered, "Because I didn't want you to know the kind of man I used to be." My heart clenched. "Elias, you were a teenager. Whatever happened wasn't your fault." He met my eyes, anguish swirling behind his gaze. "No," he murmured, "you don't understand. I wasn't just the dependent." He swallowed hard. I was the prototype. The room seemed to shrink around us. Prototype? My husband, the man who recited poetry and built birdhouses and forgot the names of things during bad days, was telling me he hadn't just lived through a dangerous project. He was the project. And before I could ask the question burning in my throat, Walsh found the passage. And this time, he wasn't alone. For several seconds, I could only stare at Elias, at the man I thought I'd known for more than 4 decades. His confession hung in the air like a dense fog, distorting everything I believed about our life together. The words sank into me like ice. Not test subject, not witness, prototype. "Elias," I whispered. "What do you mean?" His breathing grew unsteady, each inhale sharp and shallow. "My father, Silas. He wasn't just a researcher. He was developing something meant to predict behavioral outcomes, ways to modify neurocognitive response to trauma. I wasn't just his son. I was what he experimented on." I grasped his trembling hand. "You were a child. You didn't choose any of that." But I lived it. His gaze drifted toward the scattered documents as though they were ghosts of his childhood. They wanted to turn people into something they could control. My father tried to stop them. They killed him for it, and they would have killed me too. A noise echoed faintly from the passageway behind him, a metallic clang. Elias stiffened. My pulse jumped. "They found us," he whispered. A second clang followed, louder this time. A flashlight beam cut through the tunnel darkness. Walsh. And he wasn't alone. A second beam appeared behind the first, Jamie's much shakier one. The sound of their voices drifted toward us. "You sure this is safe?" Jamie's voice cracked. "This tunnel doesn't look stable." Walsh growled under his breath. "She's down here, and he's with her. We retrieve the documents and eliminate the liabilities." Eliminate. My stomach twisted. I reached for Elias's arm. "We have to move." But Elias didn't budge. He stared toward the approaching lights with the faraway expression one I'd seen only during his worst episodes, but this time sharper, clearer. A deep-rooted fear worsened by recognition. "They won't stop," he said quietly. "They've hunted me since the night my father died." "Then we run," I insisted. He forced himself up from the chair, leaning heavily on the desk. His body was frail, but his resolve wasn't. I helped him to the far side of the chamber, where another narrow passage branched off. I hadn't noticed upon entering. It was partially camouflaged behind a shelf of files. Elias nodded toward it. "This leads to the old root cellar outside. My father showed me when I was 16. Said if anyone ever came for me again, I'd have a way out." My breath hitched. "Why didn't you tell me?" His voice softened with a sorrow that felt centuries old. "Because I didn't want my past to swallow the life we built." Footsteps thumped closer. Walsh's voice echoed sharply through the tunnel. "Move faster. They're ahead." The gunshot cracked through the air like lightning splitting a tree. Birds scattered from the branches overhead, and Elias flinched violently, nearly collapsing beside me. I dragged him away from the hatch and into the shadow of a thick magnolia trunk as fast as my trembling legs allowed. "Stay low," I whispered, though my own voice shook. Behind us, Walsh's voice boomed from the tunnel's mouth. "Don't run. You can't outrun what he is." What he is. Those words stabbed into me. I looked at Elias, my gentle, fading husband, whose hands once trembled more while tying fishing knots than while holding our newborn daughter. Whatever prototype they'd meant him to be, he was still the man who held me during storms, who read poetry slowly because he wanted to savor every line. He wasn't what Walsh claimed. He couldn't be. But that didn't stop reality from tightening around us like a noose. I pulled Elias to his feet, looping his arm over my shoulder. His breathing came in labored gasps as we moved deeper into the trees, dead leaves crunching beneath our feet despite my efforts to step lightly. Every sound seemed amplified, the rustling branches, the distant hum of a car on the road, the pounding of my heart. "Lydia," he panted, "I can't. Yes, you can," I said firmly, adjusting my grip. "Just a little farther." But we didn't get far, because waiting at the edge of the woods, arms crossed, eyes sharp with shock and betrayal, was Noelle. She looked between us and the open hatch behind us, her expression tightening as she pieced things together far faster than I'd hoped. "What is going on?" she demanded. "Why are you two crawling out of the ground? And why did I hear gunfire?" I didn't have time for explanations. "Noelle, listen to me," I said, keeping my voice calm. "We need to leave right now. You're in danger." But instead of fear, something colder flashed in her eyes. Accusation. "Danger?" she scoffed. "From what? From Dad's past? From whatever you two have been hiding from me my entire life?" Elias bowed his head, shoulders sagging beneath the weight of her words. "Noelle, baby, Don't, she snapped, stepping back from him as though his touch were poison. Don't call me that right now. You lied to us, to me. Jamie said you were hiding things, but this is insane. Time was slipping away. Behind us, I heard the scraping of boots on soil, the unmistakable sound of someone emerging from the tunnel. Walsh. Noelle, I hissed, stepping forward. If you don't move right this second, he will kill us all. Her mouth fell open. Whether from disbelief or fear, I couldn't tell. She looked past us then, toward the hatch where Walsh's head appeared, followed by the metallic glint of a gun barrel. Everything happened at once. Get down, I cried. Elias lunged, not away, but toward Noelle, shielding her with his own failing body as Walsh raised the weapon. A crack echoed through the trees, but it wasn't a gunshot. It was Jamie, bursting through the brush from the backyard path, his face pale and stunned. He'd clearly followed Walsh out of panic, not loyalty, and now he froze at the sight of the gun. What the hell are you doing? Jamie yelled, voice cracking. Walsh didn't look back. Step aside, he growled. I want the man who belongs to my employer. Your employer? Jamie sputtered. You said you just wanted documents. Walsh's reply was ice. Don't confuse greed with understanding. You were just leverage. Jamie stepped back as though slapped. In that moment, amid gunmetal threats, my husband gasping for breath, my daughter trembling under his protective arms, I realized something terrible. We could not run. We could not hide. We could not even rely on luck. There was only one option left. A truth Walsh wanted but did not yet have. A truth I could weaponize. Slowly I stood, hands raised, not in surrender, but in negotiation. Walsh, I said, my voice steady even as terror churned inside me. You're wrong about what Elias is. His gun swerved toward me. And what exactly is he? He demanded. I took a breath, locking eyes with him. He's not the prototype. His expression flickered. Doubt, confusion, hesitation. And hesitation was all I needed, because the real prototype was someone entirely different, and revealing who it truly was would turn every enemy in that clearing against each other. Walsh's gun didn't waver, but his certainty did. His stance shifted almost imperceptibly, feet adjusting, shoulders tightening, as though bracing for the ground to tilt beneath him. What do you mean? He said slowly. He's not the prototype. I felt Noelle trembling behind Elias. Jamie hovered several feet away, torn between self-preservation and guilt. Elias struggled to breathe, his frail body shaking, but even now, especially now, he kept his arm protectively around our daughter. And Walsh stood at the center of it all, the tip of his gun tracking every twitch, every breath, every heartbeat. I took one deliberate step forward. You've been chasing the wrong person, I said. The wrong Rowan. Walsh narrowed his eyes. Explain. I shook my head. No. Put the gun down first. His lips curled. You're in no position to negotiate. On the contrary, I said softly, I'm the only one who can stop you from making the biggest mistake of your career. A beat of silence. Then, talk. My fingers tightened around the metal box still tucked beneath my coat. I didn't reveal it. Not yet. Elias wasn't the one Silence Rowan designed the prototype for. He wasn't the intended subject. He wasn't trained. He wasn't modified. He wasn't even present for most of the testing. Walsh scoffed. He's literally labeled in the documents as the dependent. I couldn't. The child Silas needed to keep safe. The one he hid. The one he rescued. Walsh hesitated, jaw tightening. Then who, he asked, was the prototype? I exhaled slowly, letting the truth settle like dust in sunlight. His daughter. A quiet gasp escaped Noel. Jamie muttered a curse under his breath. Walsh blinked, his grip on the gun tightening. Silas Rowan didn't have a daughter. Yes, he did, I answered. A baby born 2 years before his death. A baby girl, the true prototype, the one whose birth certificate was hidden, the one my father helped erase. I stepped closer, lowering my voice to almost a whisper. The one who was adopted under a different name, the one who grew up believing she was someone else entirely, the one who lived under this very roof. Walsh's eyes flicked to Noelle so quickly she stumbled backward. No, no, Mom. What are you saying? My heart clenched. For her, for Elias, for the weight of a secret I never asked for, but now carried like a burning cold. You're not biologically mine, I said gently. Your birth mother was Silas Rowan's daughter. My father took you in as an infant and protected you, protected all of us from the people looking to claim you. Noelle's knees buckled. Elias caught her before she hit the ground, tears welling in his tired eyes. You were the one they wanted, not your father, not me. Walsh's gun lowered. Just an inch, but enough. Confusion and fury warred across his face. This is impossible, he muttered. No, I said. It's documented. It's verifiable. And if you shoot any of us, you'll destroy the only living proof your employers truly want. Jamie, shaking, backed away even further. You said they just wanted files. Walsh's eyes flicked between Noelle and the metal box beneath my coat. He swallowed hard. Give me the documents. No. He jerked the gun upward again. I said, shoot me. I interrupted. And you'll lose the prototype. She'll disappear, go underground, vanish like Silas did. You'll never find her. But work with us. I paused. But and we can negotiate. Walsh stood frozen. Then, from the distance, sirens wailed. Jamie's voice cracked. I I called 911 when I heard the shot. I didn't know what else to do. Walsh snapped his head toward the sound. Panic finally shattered his composure. He backed toward the hatch. This isn't over. You can't hide forever. But he didn't fire. He didn't take Noelle. He didn't take the documents. He fled into the tunnel and disappeared. The sirens grew louder, leaves rustled, lights flashed between trees. Officers emerged moments later, guns drawn, shouting commands. But for the first time in hours, in days, in years, we were safe. Not unscarred, not unchanged, but alive. Epilogue. Walsh vanished before authorities reached the house. The Rowan documents were handed over through an attorney, someone far above my pay grade, but with protections in place for Noel and Elias. They could no longer hide the truth, but neither could anyone harm us without igniting federal scrutiny. Elias lived another 6 peaceful months. Peaceful because, for the first time, his past was no longer hunted. He died holding my hand, whispering that he was finally free. Noelle struggled, grieved, raged, but eventually, she forgave me because the truth hadn't taken her family. It had freed her from a life she never chose. As for me, I live quietly now. The hidden passage has been sealed, the documents stored somewhere safer than this old house could ever offer. And I spend my mornings listening to the Magnolia Ridge winds rustle the trees like they're whispering secrets. Except now, I whisper one back. I survived. And so did the truth.